Right. So good afternoon, everyone. This is the second cliniQ webinar in our TransHealthMatters Online 2020. This afternoon, we are joined by some thriving and empowered trans women who are going to talk about their experiences. And I'll hand over to Michelle to do the next part of the introduction.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, I'm Michelle Ross, and I'm the founder of cliniQ. And you just heard from Sarah, who's my colleague and friend. Sarah, do you want to say a little bit about yourself and what you do at cliniQ?
Why not? So Sarah Phillips, as in my description. I'm a director of cliniQ and also currently running the Tuesday physical clinic at King's College Hospital, the Caldecott Centre, 4 o'clock till 7 o'clock on Tuesday afternoons. And that's all pre-booked only, but I do that. I run various technical parts for cliniQ and provide a lot of the logistics support behind there, as well as some peer support, counselling, all those kind of things. Many different things that I do. This afternoon, I'm here mostly to facilitate.
You do so much, seriously, and that's just a fraction of what you do as well. And you're brilliant at IT. You know, it's like, Sarah, what do I do? So I go to Sarah. But just say, as I said, I'm the founder of cliniQ. I'm also a psychotherapist. So, you know, I also lead on aspects of our psychotherapy and counselling service as a supervisor and a psychotherapist. But we're here with some, as Sarah mentioned, some amazing, empowered and thriving trans women. And so I'm afraid one of our guests isn't here at the moment, and hopefully they're able to join us as we're going on. And that's Miss saHHara. So I'll start with introducing Alexandra. Alexandra, you know, we first met in Durban, South Africa in 2016. And you do so much that, you know, apart from the work that we've done together. You know, you've been at our conference that we had in, was it 2017 or 2016, Alexandra, when you came to London?
2007, 2017, yes.
Yes. Okay. And so, yeah, we'll come back to you in a moment. So I'll just introduce Dinah. So Dinah, again, we met at, but I'd heard about you, and we met at the in Amsterdam at the International AIDS Conference, when I was blown away, seriously, and so proud by your amazing speech. And you opened the conference to thousands of people. And I know I was there with Alexandra as well, and we sat at the front on what was reserved seats. We don't know if they were reserved for us, but we got them because we wanted to be right near where you are. And it was just amazing. So thank you for being here today. And you're welcome. So we'll come back again as well. And Victoria. Hello, darling. So Victoria's also part of cliniQ, and you're a graduate on broadcast and film. Is that right?
Yes, I did my graduation in London at London Metropolitan 5 years ago. I finished, and my dissertation was on trans characters on Argentinian cinema. So, and after that, I've been working with the film industry, with a film production company. I did a little bit of things, and now I'm just moving to different field, which is helping the trans community, giving, you know, something back.
Yeah, I think that's really important as well. And just to, before we start opening this up a little more, I just want to acknowledge that we recently had Trans Day of Remembrance, and that touches many of our community in many ways. And, you know, I want to respect that and honour that as well, and all the people that lost their life to the violence and murders and many other reasons for that loss. So I just, you know, and having this very soon after, I felt important, but also to reflect for a moment on that, and why we do that, why we have Trans Day of Remembrance as well. And so, Alessandra, if I come to you first. So
Yes.
you just touched on that we met in Durban, South Africa. You know, you're a director, a board member at ILGT, and so am I. And, you know, we also spent a lot of time together in Amsterdam at the International AIDS Conference. But the work that you do is much wider than that. I'd love people to know a bit more about what you do and why you do it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you for mentioning Transgender Day of Remembrance, because honoring those who have paved the way for us and paid a high price, and unfortunately in a society cis heteropatriarchal that see us transgender people as disposable. It is a fight, a continuous fight. And one of the reasons I got into activism is because of that, because one of my best friends was murdered in 2004 in San Francisco. And I was living in Los Angeles at the time. So it took me 2 years to go through the process of like accepting what had happened to my best friend. And this is a friend from childhood, from my youth days here in Mexico City. And we both were migrants in the US. And she was an inspiration because she was one of the transgender women that unfortunately her story is the story of at 13 she was kicked out of her house here in Mexico City because she was trans, and she had to survive on the streets of Mexico City. And then eventually she went to San Francisco, but she had gone through so much trauma and pain that at the time she was murdered, she was thriving. She was going to college. She was working for an organization that Joan Kidley, whom you and I know personally, was studying at the time, the Center of Excellence in San Francisco. So she was doing good things, and her life was just taken away, and that got to me. And of course, I had a different life. I was like working, I have put myself through school, and I was being part of corporate America. So when this happened, it really got to me. So um, eventually I quit my job and I moved to San Francisco, and I say, I have to do something, because this is not our life story. This is not how all of us have to end. This is not how the media portray us, like also that, affected me a lot, because the media, of course, always victimize us, re-victimize us after our lives get taken away, or we die a social murder, which is what I call, being part of a society that doesn't accept us and reject us. So there's so many issues for trans people that we have to deal with in society. So when I moved to San Francisco, I have no idea what activism was. I have no idea what HIV prevention was. I have no idea what social justice was. Because honestly, I've been working at the Los Angeles International Airport for 12 years. So being all of a sudden sucked into the needs of transgender migrants, undocumented, living with HIV, with with um, um, dealing and fighting with many issues like homelessness, like substance abuse. Um, um, all those issues really made me realize my place of privilege in life. So the work that I do now and that I've been doing since 2006, in reality is like a moral obligation to me. And advocacy for the human rights of transgender people, specifically for trans sex workers, trans people living with HIV, trans migrants, trans women of color, trans Latinx. It's really important to me, because we, I think, in a way, are the most vulnerable, and we are still in a very precarious situation. Like here in Mexico, for example, there's not, uh, we don't have access to dignified healthcare, for example. We don't have access to a position of power in government at all. I mean, there's no such a thing as a transgender person working for the government.
No,
Really,
none
it
at all.
isn't. So, so the fight is on. I mean, I'm head on fighting for my rights and the human rights of my trans sisters and brothers. And of course, under this umbrella, non-binary people comes in, intersex people comes in, and that's why for me it was so important the work that we did at the international AIDS conferences in South Africa and in Amsterdam. That you and I really kicked ass and really worked hard. Remember our days?
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, honestly, in Amsterdam, at the end of the day, after the conference was done, for the day, we just wanted to go home and relax. Remember?
Eat and then chill down.
Yeah, eat, and we didn't have time to go. I mean, party or to a club or
Well, I
anything. We
didn't.
just wanted to go home and go to sleep, because the next day we
Go
have to
out.
be there at 8 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
again and do it all over.
Yeah, we were mainly involved in the we were mainly involved in the network zone, weren't we? We were co-managing that, and that was a lot in a week. Yeah.
So this work is very gratifying, because I know that giving visibility and being a voice for those who didn't have a chance, it is so important. And for me, it's a great honor to be able to be doing this work and still be doing it after 16 years. And trust me, it hasn't been easy, because living in the US, at some point, I realized that I have to come back to my homeland. I have to come back to my roots. And of course, I felt very empowered at the time. And I say, if I did it in a country that honestly, being a migrant and for many years undocumented, I felt that I can do it in my homeland. So when I came to Mexico City, the challenges have been greater, but I'm so honored and so fortunate to be able to be part of the trans movement here in my own country. And at the time I was coming only for 2 years, and I'm also writing a book about my experience as a trans migrant. And I end up staying here. I don't want to go anywhere else now.
Well, amazing. And I just want to, I want to come back to you in a moment. I just want to welcome Miss saHHara. saHHara, hello, darling. Hello.
Everyone.
I wondered how you were.
I'm struggling for nearly 30 minutes to join in.
Oh,
My
no.
camera, but finally I got in.
Right. Well, you're here. So brilliant. And I will definitely come back to you in a couple of minutes. Alexandra was just saying. So, yes. So I'm so glad saHHara's here. So, Alexandra, you were saying how it was almost like a real different pace of change in a way. You went to the US when you were really young, I think. And then
Yes.
you were working, you went to school, you working at the the airport for 12 years. And then you had this kind of like, I don't know if it's awakening, but something happened where you thought, right, I want to do something different. And you set up something, didn't you, in San Francisco for trans people?
Yes, um, um, when I saw the needs of all these trans migrants and their challenges, we co-founded this organization called ELA para Trans Latinas, with the help and support of a few others. And for that, I'm very grateful, because at the time, our budget was very limited. I remember we almost have to do like a collective work, and sometimes we have to buy like those instant noodle soups and coffee and cookies to give to the participants of our program. And at the time, I think our budget was like $175,000. And 15 years later, ELA para Trans Latinas is still there, and now their budget is over $1 million. So I am so very proud, you know, that I was part of that, and I was able to do something that has been impacting the lives of these trans women of color for many years.
And you have.
Now,
You've done brilliantly. And we'll come back, because this is about chatting with each other.
Yeah, thank you.
If I just go to Dinah, is that okay to come to you before we move on to saHHara? So, yeah, as I said earlier, you know, you, Alexandra and I, and we've both spoken about this, haven't we, Alexandra? You know, seeing you there was really important for us. You know, we've been to other international AIDS conferences, but you being up there, opening the conference, seeing all those people, felt, my heart was pounding with pride, seriously. And I just wondering what that was like for you to be doing that.
It was both, there were two things. It was quite nerve-wracking, of course.
Yeah.
And the process before was also very difficult in a way, because they scrutinized very much like the words you're going to say, and also because I had to be on stage with the minister. So I suddenly saw everything on my LinkedIn going, like, it was checked. I've heard through the municipality, did a check, and then you all of a sudden feel very criminalized, you know, like because of it. You just think because of being a trans woman, of color, the whole track record and everything had to be, you know, and it was a bit strange in a way, because I've never had that before, that I was like really checked for all the credentials, everything, you know, like what my records at least. And when it was done, I really felt, because I really wanted to write something that was important, by which, let's say, policymakers and governments, but also like donors, would understand the needs of the trans community in a different way, in a different sense, and especially those living with HIV, because I thought the HIV and the trans community, let's say, they don't go together. There is this big stigma. It's all about, like, let's say, empowerment and people their rights as well, many times, like, and it's very important. Legal gender recognition is very important, but there is also another side of the coin, and that is the people who have to live with double stigma, who have to live with violence due to the HIV. And for long times, I think many of us who lived in the margins, and who worked as well with sex work, for example, or dating, and stuff like that, it has been very dangerous, and it has been very traumatizing for many of us to live with the notion that you could be hurt because you have a disease that is so heavily looked at in society. So with this intervention, with this speech, the USU for me was very much like, I have to say this. I have to throw it out that people can live not in this oppression, not in this fear anymore, because if you are using, or if you are on medication and you have let's say you are undetectable, there should be no need for all these things in the world, all this hate and all this anger and all this like misinformation as well. And that is where I felt like it has to come from a woman of color. It has to come from someone who dares to speak up, because it was for the first time ever that I spoke about my HIV background. So it was like, it was the coming out of the coming out, and I felt like, oh my God, now I won't see guys anymore. The clients, they all leave, and this is the thing that goes in your mind, because it is so open, and it is, you can review it whenever you want on YouTube. So it actually didn't, because it changed for me a lot of things, and not only for me, I think for a lot of us in our community, that we are now heard at tables, that we are listened to with academics, that we can work together with hospitals, that they see that we are the last sort of like need for policy change to come to zero HIV infections. That is the most important group of people that needs to be built in medical structures, and it has to be done together with the community. It cannot be done with academics or hospitals alone, because then you will not get this closure and the figures we all want to have, like zero infections. So this is what I felt like. I just drop it. I don't want to say I didn't care what came out, but I was just like, it's this fearless moment that you think like, okay, I just do it, and I don't know what happens afterward, because maybe the whole world be like, I don't know, and it turned out differently. So I'm happy with,
Brilliant, yes, and anyway, taking that step forward, and it's almost like not leaping to the dark, but a leap onto the unknown, because you don't know what's going to come forward. Thankfully, good has come from what you did as well. And you know, you spoke about HIV and trans people. I've been involved in HIV and wellbeing care for 32 years, and I think over that time there was a real not speaking about it as trans people. Don't, within the communities, don't speak about HIV. You know, hide it even more than other people hide it, and that stigma was in the communities as well as outside, and especially for trans women. And so you making that public statement to thousands of people that attended, cis people majority, you know, hearing you speak so clearly and calmly was really important and set a benchmark, I think, for a change. And I know that within this sector of HIV, we talk about, my mind's gone, but we talk about, what is it when we talk populations, at-risk populations or high populations. And I think sometimes trans people have been tagged on and not really explored in that populations. Really.
Yeah, and it's now that we can say like the trans community is not only trans women. No, we also have trans men. We have non-binary people. If you want to target us and get us in the work that we are doing in the HIV medical academics, but also in the activists, it's where we need to let it be done by us, by the trans people. Otherwise, you won't get it solved. So I think that is now on. We are all like invited. We can speak. We have our community services that are really seen as a solution, the best practice solution. So I think that is, for me, it's like really, and also to the rest of the world. I mean, it has been very important those last, the last conference actually, and now we are hopefully going to another moment where we can meet again and see what it all brought to us.
Yeah. And of course, you spoke at our conference, which was a smaller conference than
it was also good.
Conference. You know, and it was such a pleasure. And you know, like Alexandra, you know, you travelled to come to the UK to do that, and Alexandra came from Mexico to do when she came. But it was, you know, that again was an inspirational speech as well. It seems like you bring that to what you do. And, you know, we would call this empowered and thriving. Now, I don't always feel empowered and thriving, and I don't know if you all do, but there's a real sense of, I think it's important to let people know that if you all do this, well, others can do as well. But also, you did something else. You set up a service for trans people, a sexual health and well-being service in Amsterdam.
Yeah, actually very much inspired by you, of course, but that's where I saw for like first Dean Street and then cliniQ. I was like, okay, this is so amazing, and we need to have something like this in Amsterdam, because I know the community that needs it, you know, like the sex workers, the people of color, all the migrants, all the people who have no status and no possibility to enter hospitals. The first thing what I saw within your work was like the community led, so that at the front office there's always someone you recognize and that knows your and understands as well. You know, you don't have to explain a lot. It's just the understanding, and then even the talks with the doctor, if there is someone going through the process with you, along with you, or who wrote the anamnese, or that is where I thought like, oh, that's something that I can do as well. So we just started off in the sex worker community in the red light district in Amsterdam. We opened an office on a Sunday. 40, 60 people were coming in. It was crazy. It's like too much. But at the end, we're now open for 2 years. And I think, well, COVID brought a lot of, difficulties, of course, but we still could provide a little bit of service. But the good thing is that I really thought like, how can we bring it together with the same way you did it with hospitals, that you get conversations with internal diseases, with psychiatry, with all the needs and possibilities that people could have, but the access to it is very difficult. Like that, there is this big step, and we can make it maybe smaller to have the service first with us, and then immediately having someone of the other departments next side. So I think that is where I'm sort of like hoping and thinking that and I always use you as best practice. So I'm just saying to hospitals, if we are in conversations, take a look at that system, how they work with national health services. It is not, because that's the first thing that have been always difficult. They say like, but we do, for example, generic STD and HIV. So it's not individual cases, so it's not hormones and HIV. Then I said, like, if you want to tackle HIV, you really need to do hormones, because if you don't have that, it's going to be very difficult. So this is where we have like the conversations, and I'm sort of like hoping that it will in the next year that we can come up with some good news, because I think this is going to be like really changing the mindsets as well for HIV medics. It has to be done together. If not, you won't reach what you want.
I agree 100% and with you. And we're not only a trans-led organization, we are a trans organization.
Yeah.
We are inclusive of cis people who self-identify as cisgender, but they're either involved in the communities or they have been they know their stuff. But it's the trans people that in charge. No, that sounds terrible. But there you go.
Important enough. Yeah.
And I wish you every success with that future of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we have got time, so we'll come back. I just want to say, I know I said hello, saHHara, but hello, and I know Victoria's here, so we'll have Victoria after you, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Take your time. Take your time.
Have you talked, darling? I absolutely adore you, and you know that. And have you sorted your technical issues out?
Yes, it's not done. You can hear me well, right?
Oh yeah, brilliant.
Oh, great. It means yes.
And I love your microphone. It's white, and I've seen it on things, and it's so glamorous, like you.
Thank you.
And we met because we met before this, but you did the Miss Trans Global, which was a phenomenal international global.
Oh, you're talking to me now. I thought you were going to talk to Victoria first.
I'm talking to you.
Okay, sorry. Sorry. Yes.
And you did. And we met before that, but you invited me to be a judge on that. And I was like, oh, this is so out of my comfort zone. But, I loved it, every minute of it.
Yes,
and,
you did an amazing job.
You did an amazing job.
The girls loved you. The contestants from around the world, most of the other judges, you and Monica late Monica, were the most kindest judge among the other younger judges, because the judges are more like very critical, they are very finicky. But you and Monica were very kind to the girls, and the girls, they all absolutely appreciated that.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you for that. You were just amazing. How you brought people together, the work that you put into that.
Yes,
Bring,
it was,
interviewing all the contestants, bringing them together, advising them.
yeah.
That is serious work.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was very difficult. I didn't even plan it. It wasn't something that I like thought about and planned. It just
Yeah.
happened when the coronavirus struck.
Mm.
I wanted to do it before because I have a master's degree in digital media. So everything I do is digital, website design, editing, whatever, anything that has to do with digital, I'm always online. So the reason I got into it, just a tiny background, is because I was singing, I was in the music industry, and every time I go to a tech, someone to help me to produce the music or help me to design a website or do something, they keep charging me exorbitant amount of money. Because, you know, as women, they often, when they say a woman or a glamorous woman, they times the prices by 3 or more. So I said, that's it, I'm going to learn how to do it myself. So I started getting into digital stuff, and, you know, because I'm always on my own, and I'm always on dating website chatting with and pissing off men. So I was like, the best thing to do is just get into it, study it, go to school and do it. So I did a master's in it. So yeah, so my background was to incorporate what I like to do and what I enjoy doing, which is pageantry. I love beauty pageant, and I love music. So I said, okay, maybe we should try something different and create a international digital pageant. So that was how Miss Trans Global came about. First up, it was Queen of Nations, which was a physical pageant that have been going on since 2007.
Mm.
But somehow, due to funding, lack of funding, and lack of interest in the UK, because in the UK here, pageants are not popular. And then when we were looking for contestants, we don't get English girls or Black girls. We often get only Filipino girls. So I was like, oh, okay, you know what? Instead of bringing girls that is just representing fake countries, and they're only residing in the country here, which is the UK, and is a physical pageant, why not do it digital and open it up to the world and see the number of girls that will apply? And stroke of genius, I have to say, I was very shocked when, due to coronavirus, people didn't look down on the competition. Normally they will, you know, the pageant fanatics, the fans are usually very like, oh, you can't do digital pageants. It's only stage pageant and Miss Universe. And then luckily enough, it was accepted very well by the media. So yeah, it's been going so well.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. And, you know, the person who was crowned, because there were several different categories, weren't there? You know.
Yes, Mela. Yeah, she's very intelligent and very. The pageant is activism and advocacy driven. It's not like your usual pageants.
Yeah.
It's not about how aesthetic you look and how cis you look. Because I've done so many international pageants, and everything that I saw that was wrong with those pageants, we try to correct it with this pageant. So we try to make it open for everyone. All body sizes, all ages are welcome. If you can speak, make sure your costumes are amazing. The way you do your delivery is very important. How intelligent you are, because we'll put them through a lot of interviews and see who does well. And if you remember very well, you're one of the people having to watch the videos over and over again to make a decision. Yeah, it must be very difficult for you.
Well, you know, thing is, you brought people together from around the globe, and I think that's really important that we all connect.
Thank you.
Because, you know, when I think about our communities, we're global. There's many issues that are similar. There's many issues that are different.
Yes.
And also, I'm going to bring you on to TransValid.
Yes.
Yeah.
TransValid started.
Not only do you do the Miss Trans Global, but TransValid.
Yes, TransValid has been around for a while, for a long time now. I started it after winning Super Serena Worldwide in the Philippines, and I needed an avenue to channel my activism because I couldn't do that on my main page. And I wanted to do something specifically. I don't want to put my face to it. My activism has never been about me. It's about the trans community. Yeah. So I wanted to be in the background, and because I know a lot of girls who are like me, you know, who are into pageantry or into modeling and all of that. It's always all about them, and I didn't like that. I'm one of those people that don't like to be at the face of this. No, so I did TransValid quietly, and just keep on pushing it with a team, and we kept on collecting news. What happened was the only time I get news stories was through Monica Roberts, through Transgrio. And I remember very well that we need an avenue to collect all those news stories, to curate the news stories and just publish them on social networking sites so that people can go on there. It's a one-stop hub for them to get the news of the day, either of the year, of the day, or of the week. So let's collect all the news story and just publish it, and especially the murders of trans people. So when we started it, many people assumed that Trans Valley was for just showing pretty pictures of trans people, like they do with, if you go to Instagram, you see some Instagram pages that have hundreds of thousands of followers. It's all about pretty pictures of trans people. Trans Valley wasn't done for that. Trans Valley actually was started because I went through this very difficult time in my life where constantly seeing stories of trans people being murdered or being violently attacked or being harassed on the street. And it's what I went through growing up in Nigeria. And I was like, you know, we don't talk about this too much on the media. Everybody keeps quiet about it. On social media, I don't see people posting it. That's it. We're going to start posting such stories. No matter how it makes people uncomfortable, we're going to start posting them. So we're doing it, and many people in our community were angry at us, saying that what we're doing is wrong. Well, it's like pain porn. We are sharing the pain of the community to get likes. I said, no, we're not doing it. We're not getting paid for it. We're doing it for free. We're performing a service for our community. We want people to see we want people to see it. The shock value is very important, because the more people see the shock, maybe they will take our pain more seriously. So we need to share it. I'm tired of this blurring and hiding things out and not showing people what is happening to our community. We need to show them exactly what we're going through. So that was how Trans Valley started. And it's gone very well, but lately I've been struggling with it because it's very difficult because of lack of funding. But we're still applying and see if anybody will help us, because everything has been coming out of my pocket. It's not easy. It's been very difficult, but I'm very proud of Trans Valley. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And I'm proud that you did that. Go on, Mark.
We are trying, one more thing, we're trying to change the position of Trans Valley now to fighting for domestic violence. One of the main campaigns for trans people. Because most of our trans sisters that are murdered are usually murdered by partners and people they already know. Based on the research that we've done, it's usually people from the community. For example, Black trans women murdered by other Black men. And we don't talk about it enough. And I talk about it. Many of my Black community will go, you're a sellout, but I don't care. I'm going to call it out. I will say it as it is, because it is happening in my community, and it's our Black brothers who are doing it. So we need to call them out on it. And, you know, people in relationships as well. Like, for example, one of my closest friends died a few days ago, who was murdered by her partner, stabbed in the face 36 times by her partner. And that really, really pissed me off. So we want to start a campaign on Trans Valley, and I hope all of you can join us, because we want to start that campaign where we would be more physical about the issues that happens in domestic violence, especially at this time of COVID-19. It's more difficult for our trans sisters who are in abusive relationships.
Absolutely. I think, and just to touch on, you know, showing those graphic violence of murder and abuse, it's difficult to watch as a trans woman. It's, you know, I guess for anybody, but it shows the realness.
They need to see it. They need to see it, because we've been desensitized to think that it's happening in America or it's happening in so places. Then we don't feel it because it's not close to home. You know, but we need people to see it, because by doing so, they will take action. Start lobbying, contact your MPs, your leaders, your House of Rep or whatever. Get political. We're trying to push our trans family members to get political. I know that a lot of us shy away from politics, but it's very important, because those people that we put in power are the people who pass those laws that affect us. So so we need to push our community to take action.
Okay. I just want to come to Victoria, and then I want to say to everyone here, you know, about allies, people who are allies to trans people, and what you'll think about that as well, and what it means to each of you. But Victoria, I'm sorry to keep you waiting like that, and you know, you joined us early on, and it's, you know, I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad that you're a part of cliniQ, and you know, so you mentioned some of your background is in film and broadcasting. You have a degree in that as well.
Yes, exactly. But that degree came like around 5 years ago. But I in the 90s, I'm from Argentina. So during the 90s, I didn't know that I was, I thought I knew that I was trans, but my way to show my transness was different because it was so difficult for trans people at the time in my country to live free as a trans person because there were a lot of murders, there was police persecution,
Hold on.
a lot of government negligence. So I
breaking up. Can everybody hear?
So I had to this.
No,
Can
hold
you
on.
hear me?
Seems to break up. Your words are breaking up because of the connection.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I decided to be a drag queen at the time, and I had a career doing that, working in clubs, and then I decided to leave my country due to the great, Latin America is a very religious kind of place, and there's a lot of machismo, a lot of
Going again.
that.
Yeah, it keeps going. The connection keeps breaking up.
I think it's your microphone or your,
or is it this?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah,
you can take it off. You can take the headphones off.
You can take it out. Yeah. No, can't hear you.
Can you speak?
Wait, you're gonna.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can. Yeah.
Is it better?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I decided to leave my country, and I went to live in Miami for a few years, and then I went to Spain. And I arrived in Spain without papers. I had to look the way in which to become a citizen, a Spanish citizens, which I did. I work in clubs and that sort of field for many years. And then I became Spanish, and after some years I came to the UK, and I found a job in a restaurant, and then I decided to do a university degree in film and TV production, and that was 2015. So that was my journey. And around 2012. Argentina passed the law regarding self-identification for trans people.
Yes.
So my family said to me, "What are you waiting for? Why don't you come here and you change your documents and your name?" So my sister told me that. So I went to Argentina. I changed all my papers, and I changed my Spanish passport. So from 2012. I was legally, with the name that I always wanted to have, which is Victoria. And Victoria is the name of someone that been through a lot of things and survived patriarchy and survived a lot. And I like to consider myself as someone who achieves things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Victoria, like victorious as well, you've come through a lot. And
Yes, and then during the lockdown this year, I realized that I wanted to give something back to my community, and that's when I asked you to join cliniQ. Because during this lockdown, I've been, everybody been through difficult, every story is different, but I felt so isolated and alone, and I think that trans community is a community that always embraced me. All my sisters and my trans sisters. So I decided to give something for the community back.
Yeah, and you are doing, what you do as a person as well. You really are present within the communities in a very positive way, and I think that's really empowering for others, I think. And so, yeah.
Yes, and I decided to be a mentor and a study life coach.
Yeah.
On top of the degree that I had 5 years ago, because that's something that I can bring back to my community.
Can I ask Victoria some questions?
Yeah.
Victoria, so when you were undocumented, because your story is so synonymous to mine, like in the sense that working in the club scene, you didn't have papers, and then struggling to get your papers. How difficult was it for you, that period that you didn't have your papers?
It was difficult because I went to live to United States, and I stayed for 2 years undocumented.
Yeah.
And then I decided that that was going to be so difficult to get the papers in America. So I traveled to Spain, and I didn't have any papers at the moment, but I've been working in clubs and everything until someone, give me a contract to work. And then I just had my residence, and I spent like, I don't know, I think it's 5 years until you can apply for your citizenship. And that's what I did, I think 2008. And then I came here at that time, a few months later, and I found a job, and then I went to university. I changed my papers, my documents, and then due to Brexit, I had to become British. So now, so that was 2018.
Oh, well done.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I had the same issue, but mine was, I didn't have, because for me, the fear of being deported or being sent back, for 2 years, I didn't have my papers. I was always looking over my shoulder. So I was working cash in hand on the street of Soho, giving out flyers in all the gay clubs and dressed up in giant platform heels, like 12-inch heels. This was 2004 to 2006. It was a complete nightmare for me. But things happen as time goes on. You tend to find your feet and you find a way around. And that's what I always say to other young girls coming up, that it will be difficult in the beginning, but if you stick with it and you persevere, you somehow make it through.
I hold on to the desire to overcome all the difficulties put out there by society. But my dream was, when I was on my teen years, London was the mecca for me. The music and all of the androgynous artists like Pete Burns or Boy George brought me here in a way. So because those were my role models at the time. There was no one else I could look at and think, this is someone that's exactly like me, or is a part of my community. So I think that I thanks to Boy George, for example, I'm in London. I follow that dream when I was 13 or 14 years old. And here I am now, with a degree, working, for the trans community. So the thing is to overcome all the struggles, and that there's always a way to get to places, to get things, and it's very important to study, to train yourself. And now in internet, there's a lot of things to do, a lot of things to study, so there's no reason not to do it. So I think the new generations should go into internet and get skills, a lot of skills. I think that's the way.
I think it's really possible as well. And just to say that both you, Victoria, and saHHara mentioned really important areas, and I know Alexandra has worked in this area as well, and I'm sure Dinah has something to say. And I don't know if you want to all touch on that, because it's a real issue for people, especially around documentation, being undocumented, that vulnerability of all that that's associated with all those issues, as well as being trans.
Yeah, I like to just say that unfortunately we live in a world that is still persecuting and criminalizing trans people. Therefore, many of us, because I myself was a trans migrant and undocumented at some point, for many years living in the US, are escaping this violence, this hate in their own countries, sometimes even from their own families. So I think definitely we need to realize and understand that our work as activists and advocates for human rights have to be intersectional. We have to understand that some of us are in a position that we are leaving our homelands not because we are looking for, like they say here on this side of the world, the American dream, but trying to survive. To me, leaving my home at 16 years old and going to a strange country all by myself, it wasn't easy. And I'm so glad that I did, because after 40 something years, I'm still here. And most of the girls from my generation, they're gone.
Yeah.
Like, I think, and I don't know, because you never know, but if I would have never left at 16 and try to survive, I probably won't be here, sitting here telling you this story today, because unfortunately my dearest sisters are not here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we need to understand that transmigrations are an act of survival. Yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely.
I
And a
agree.
real vulnerability.
Yeah.
Does anybody else want to say anything before we?
Yeah, I think it's very important to stress that many of us who left our indigenous countries to come to the Western world came blinded, not knowing what we were going to expect or what we were going to experience. And then coming here, becoming homeless, and then ending up on the street or either taking up dangerous jobs in order for us to survive. And this is one of the many reasons why many of our trans sisters are being murdered around the world. And we have such high rate of suicide. And because one, we don't have access to good healthcare. In fact, we don't have access to information, which is super, super important. Because when I first came to the country here, I didn't know that NHS, when I went to the GP for the first time, the GP told me, NHS don't do such things. Like things that give us hormones or there is no such thing done on NHS. So information, we didn't have that information, which now we have. Thanks to the internet, you can get a lot of information, and many more people on the NHS now have the education for it. And then we even have social care that can help you, direct you on the right path. And this is why I will always love one of my sisters. I don't know if you guys know her, but her name is Adele. Adele was very helpful, and she was the person when I needed accommodation, when I became homeless, and looking for a right GP to sort out my case. She was the one that was directing me on what to do, because I was in limbo for years, not knowing what to do. So then fighting to get your papers first before you get recognized, and then before you start being on the system, it's just a complete nightmare. So we must stress that and try to reach out to our trans family members that come from all around the world.
Absolutely. And Dinah was talking about something about that health issues earlier, and I don't know if you wanted to respond to what anyone said.
Yeah. Like the perspective that I take and why I do the work I do is slightly different, but I share definitely the position as a trans woman of color, because actually all the issues and the problems started when I came out as a trans woman. And before, my life was pretty well arranged. I was very young in New York. There was a bit of difficulties when I really got young, infected by HIV, like 21. Then I came back to Europe to sort of like be with my family and again. But the family and everything surrounded me that was a blessing. I mean, I come from an adaptive background, so for me that's a different perspective. But I noticed that as soon as I broke up with the normative part of, even if you're gay and of color, when I started to become a trans woman, I lost my job, I lost my title. I mean, I've worked very long as a lawyer, but that was nothing worth anymore. And I had to start over again with schooling, and I could become a nurse. And it was like, okay, but the reason why they thought nurse was okay was because they said, well, at least you're placed then, and they all call you a ma'am and a nurse. Like nurse in Dutch is sister. They will call you sister. So I mean, that's at least good for you then. I don't think I ever experienced anything like that being a trans person, and especially racialized as well, in the context of I've never had that before, and seeing what it meant that I mean, I had everything together, like housing and everything, but I always had people living with me, or people I took in for a couple of years to support, because I saw the people I loved and care for having nothing. And that was very difficult because I could understand the path. You know, I see the patterns, I see the intersectional issues of being oppressed, of being a woman. So you have to deal with patriarchy, you have to deal with misogyny. Then you are of color, you have to deal with racism. And the thing is, my background is Pacific. So my parents, my biological parents are from the Pacific. So the colonization and everything with it, I've learned through their stories. And my grandparents, I saw when for the first time met them, I was very interested in, like, where are my roots from? What is what is it? And learning from them, and especially now what happens in the movement of, let's say, the Black community, but also the people of color communities that are more aware of why are we here first? How did it happen? And what is the whole system of colonialism, and how can we decolonize together? Because that at the ultimate end brings us all together in a space where we can move freely and have no burdens of, you know, like things that withhold us, but especially the anger, the violence, oppression. And then being a woman, and a woman of color, it brings you to the lowest level of society in a sense, where you're beaten up the most easily, where people don't care because it's just a woman or a person that actually asked for it in a way. And being in this position, and I know what that feels, because they also said it to me. You could have stayed a guy because you had it together. I don't know what on earth made you think you would have a better life as a woman. And I was like, well, there was no choice, right? There was no choice. But it's something that we need to, I think, also clear up for the next generation. We need to build bridges and find allies in the other organizations and movements that are intertwining with our oppression. So I mean, the anti-racism activists, definitely, because there's a lot to work to be done, especially when again, listen to saHHara. I know saHHara already for a long time and admire her work enormously. And it's true that we as women of color, we mostly beaten up by people, by male of color. And that has to do with again, those people who are as well oppressed, who live in miserable situations, and they find us, they find some sort of connection, and they find it interesting and sexy and everything. But then we are the first one to be beaten up by their anger because of society and the place they are on. So I think, to be honest, like if we are a Black Lives Matter, the people in Black Lives Matter have to take it up for us, and we need to be part of that movement, because that's the only solution. And there's so much more of this intersectional, like the women's leagues. I've been in many occasions where I've been humiliated as well. When I was a director at TGU, you are in commissions, the first woman of color in European commissions, in positions where people call you out for not being human. Like, why do you speak on this commission? It's about women and you are a man. And that's Hungary or Poland. And everybody is just like trying to like not hear it. But I'm there, I'm there professionally, so I have to stay professional. I cannot be angry. I have to bring out my speech. I have to lobby with the right people, but still that thing that comes to your head and to your mind. And knowing that behind me are all those people, all those trans women who are beaten up by society because of these ideas that are brought in people's minds. I mean, that is where we need to, where I felt at that moment, I mean, I can be humiliated 100 times, but I need to stand up there, because if I don't do it, you know, this is the time to do it. I think that's one of the most important things, and especially misogyny. Misogyny is the rooting of everything, you know, like we are, even in our trans community, it's very hard to speak up on these issues, very hard. And if you do so, you are sort of kicked out. But I mean, I have to speak up because it happens to me and it happens to all of my other trans people who feel very much vibing female energy. And if you cannot place that in in the architecture of society, you don't understand anything about the trans community. So yeah.
I absolutely agree with you completely, Dinah. And misogyny is through so much. It's not separate to the trans community, is the structures are there. And just to say, as a white person, I'm aware and sometimes not aware of my privilege that this whiteness gives me. Okay, I'm trans, I have other intersectional issues, but my white skin gives me that privilege of invisibility as well. And, we have a lot of work to do.
Even me as a light-skinned Black woman, I have my privileges. I think if we learn as human beings to check our privileges, even Black people have their privileges. It's just that many people forget to check their privileges. Education is a privilege. Speaking English is a privilege. Taking hormones is a privilege. Having surgery is a privilege. Or genetic privilege. Some of us have genetic privileges. When our parents give birth to us, we're lucky enough, if you are a trans woman, maybe your body size or the way your voice sounds, it's also a privilege. So we need to check all those privileges before we start pulling other people down. If you know your privileges, you respect other people better. I think it's one of the issues that we have in our community because many people don't check their privileges. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I know.
Because I'll give you an example. As a Black woman, because my hair is light and my skin is light, I go to Nigeria, I'm treated as a beautiful woman, and women who have my skin color are given more opportunities than women, not trans now, women, cis women who have darker skin. But when they find out I'm a trans woman, I go down to the bottom totem pole. There is a totem pole, there's levels of the totem pole. So there are levels when we're checking it. There are white men, there are, then white women, and then, cis, then you go down the totem pole, then you have Black men, and then you have Black women, and then you go down, then you see disabled people, then you keep on going down, and then you see trans women, then you see white trans women, then you see light-skinned women. So we all have, it's a very complex subject, but we as human beings need to check ourselves. And that is why whenever I'm speaking for my community, I try not to view it from my point of from my lenses. Somebody's vocals is echoing. Maybe it's Victoria's. No, it's not. Okay. Yeah, so we have.
Oh, I've muted you.
Sorry. So when we are doing speaking for our community or from advocacy standpoint, I don't like using the word activism anymore because that word is so stained now. So I like to use the word advocacy. When I'm trying to advocate for my community, I often try to use not to view it from my lens because the way I experience life could be different from other people. I try to understand the situation, especially non-binary people, non-binary brown and Black people, what they're going through. They are the new boogeyman. They hate trans people in general, but non-binary people are the new boogeyman. Before it was gay men, they moved to trans people, now it's to the non-binary people. So we need to educate people more about who we are, where we come from, and why we are valid, because people fear what they don't know. We need to dispel that fear with facts. If we can dispel those fears, that is why whenever you're going to argue with someone, make sure you arm yourself with facts, arm yourself with quotes, arm yourself with science and technology, arm yourself with education. By doing so, you will dispel all their lies. People fear what they don't know. And this is why education is very, very important. As Nelson Mandela always says, yeah.
I'm aware of the time, but we can carry on. We can extend it a bit. And I just wanted to say, this is why it's very important hearing you all this afternoon for it being about empowered and thriving trans women, which you all display so brilliantly, so eloquently in all that you do and what you say, really. And I just, there's been so many issues. It's almost like we could have a whole session on each of the issues, really. And, maybe we will at one day, and we have in other areas. But I just also thinking about allies. What does it mean for you, that term, allies, to trans people?
I think when we say allies, it's not only people that are cheering for us and supporting the work that we do, but people that are really vocal and visible and that take it upon themselves to defend and protect us and to join us in our fight for our human rights. Um, I think it's really important to know who our true allies are because there are a lot of people around us. And sorry about that noise, it's like some truck that's coming. Um, but I think it's really important to recognize who our true allies are because, like I say, it's not only people that are in the background. No, our true allies are people that join us at the front lines and also that are vocal when we are not. So to me, that's a true ally. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? You're
I would
muted.
like to, I would like to come in there because I'm reading something that Barry O'Donovan wrote, and it's quite interesting because Barry said that Barry feels more than an ally, and I can agree that there are allies and then there are allies. There are some people who would sit down and casually have a conversation with your cis friends and your cis friends attacking trans people and just keep quiet and not say anything. A true ally is the one that does not need an incentive to speak out. And a true ally is someone who would actually fight for us in the forefront. And the word ally doesn't even matter. I call you my family, Barry. If you feel that you are a family member and you are my brother or a family member, let me use a number in term because I don't know your pronouns. So I don't know if you're my, like I have very close friends I have really amazing relationship with for many years, even before I started my journey into womanhood, who didn't know that, who didn't know a term for what to call themselves, but they always seen me as a woman. And whenever anybody start talking about me or writing or saying things about me negatively, they start attacking the person. They are my family members. I consider them my family member. If you don't feel like an ally, Barry, you're not an ally. I would gladly hug you and bring you into my life because you want to be in my life. You are one of me. If you don't feel that you're different from me, you are my fellow. You can sit with me in the forefront as we fight together. We need to always appreciate, because I see this in my community a lot, where the Black community often disparage or certain white people or some white people. And they forget that there are some white people who even die for us. There are some white people who walked with us through the bridge of Selma. There are some white people who would stand in the forefront. Look at this last Black Lives Matter movement. They're mostly young white people who are in the forefront fighting with us. We mustn't forget that we also need to support them and give them that strength and support from us and encourage them that they are our family members, they are one of us, and let's go and fight together. Because the more we have, the stronger we will conquer. If we take one twig of stick, you can easily break it. But if you pick a bunch of stick, you can hardly break it. So segregating ourselves and saying, oh, you're not one of us, just because you speak for me, doesn't mean that you haven't had my experience, so you're not one of us. Yes, of course, they acknowledge the fact that they don't know my experience, my lived experience, but they're standing in the forefront because they know that it's not right. And they accept their experience, which the things that they've gotten from their ancestors, they know they've acknowledged it, and they're standing next to me and fighting with me. So you're one of me. I would fight for you, like they are fighting for me. So it doesn't matter. I think in our community, we need to learn to actually accept people, because I noticed this in certain circle, and even in the trans circle as well, because Dinah and I have done a lot of these events where we mix from all over the places, and I see a lot of our trans communities attacking white trans people who are actually in the forefront talking and preaching about what Black trans women go through. And if you remember what happened in Charlottesville, the girl that was murdered, that the car got moved down, was a white woman. When these fascist people or transphobic people are coming to attack us, when they see a white person standing next to us, they will attack that same person they'll attack that person like the way they attack us. So they won't see any difference between us. So we are all family members. If we agree, have the same ideology and agree on the same thing and fighting for the same cause, you are my family member.
Yeah.
I don't care the color of your skin.
Thank you. That was impassioned and amazing. And no, Victoria, did you want to say something? I saw you wrote something. And
no, I just want to say what an ally means to me. I mean, someone who acknowledges our struggles and stand by our side, you know, like a part of a family, of a friend. So that is what an ally is to me. I don't like the words like gay friendly or trans friendly, because that's like giving them the power to be friendly with us. And I found those words, I don't like that. An ally is someone who will be part of our family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who will guide us to be our better, to become our better self.
Yeah. I can see Alexandra, you went like this at one point, not trans-friendly, something else. Yeah, you didn't like that. Okay.
Yeah, don't believe that at all, you know. I mean, I don't even know what trans-friendly is, but no thanks.
Depends how friendly. But so yeah, Dinah.
Yeah, I think for me as well, allies are people who want to help us doing the work we need to do. So it means that we need to have donors that are willing to step in to provide us with financials so we can do this work. It means that we have doctors, hospitals that understand our struggle and our needs, so that they open up the doors for us and make a space. I think that those are as well important allies next to politicians who feel that they need to do this work because of injustice, and injustice in a law frame or injustice in a human rights frame. It's both what happens to us in life, and I think those people are really important not to forget as allies, because we need them in the work that we do, but also to keep the continuation of the work we're doing, because without that, I think it will be very difficult. And one of the things that are really dangerous for our community is that people sometimes tend to forget that we are very united, you know, like as people in this struggle and people in this life. And one of the things that people that makes us weaker is that we get sometimes so divided, and that people try to spill up, or you know, like there is so much trauma in our lives, and it's so difficult for us to overcome that it becomes as well very easily that we attack each other on very not important things, you know, like because the one has more followers or the hair is more shiny or whatever. The backstabbing is real, and I think that is making the movement very vulnerable. I mean, you can have beautiful allies, but as long as you murder each other amongst each other, then you don't, you know, those allies will also turn and think like, I don't know what's happening there. So this is one of the things that we really need to find words to, and I think these kind of conversations are beautiful, but also to feel that support, you know, like we are working international, and it's really great that we can meet up and tell about these things, because they, next to like you can be murdered and killed, but you also can be, your life can be made very miserable if you try to build something beautiful and someone else wants to destroy it, not because it's a beautiful piece of art that you made, but just because it's you. And that is something that I think like we need to really keep each other sane and safe, because it's such hard work, and it's so very fragile. And
And it is, and absolutely such important points. And I know that there's a couple of things I want to say. And sometimes what you're given, you tend to give out within your own community, because you might know the vulnerabilities that exist. And so, you know, you can kind of attack because you felt attacked, or you can, you know, pull someone down rather than raise them up. And I think it's important to try and raise people up.
The oppressed are the worst oppressors.
Yeah. And I have something, I know that in my time, you know, I talk about, you know, I changed my gender expression 50 years ago, and I've seen many changes that have become better, but I've seen a lot of attacks, as we all have, not just physical, but social media that never existed when I was younger. In fact, we were quite invisible because no one used to speak about us. So, you know, you could just, you know, and if they did, it was sensationalized and your life was ruined. But, you know, and I've seen those changes over those 50 years. And I think for me, it's important to acknowledge some of the good things that have changed.
Yeah. You remember I was saying to this, sorry for cutting you in. You remember I was saying to the people who complain about a boogeyman in the toilet, the man in the dress would attack their kids. I said, what are you going on about? We've been using toilet for many, many years without having any issues. So why is this such a big news now? So yeah, I agree. You're totally right.
Absolutely. So I'm just wondering, for other people who might be watching this, or people who watch this recording, is there any advice, say one word or a few words from each of you that you'd like to give to people or say?
I think what I heard from all of my sisters here present is that really education should be a word, because I think some of us have been very fortunate to be able to acquire some type of education. And now it is our responsibility to educate others. And having these panels, having these conversations, I think is a way to educate others, but also for our new generations, not only support them, but also teach them and lead the way and open up, you know, this conversation about how important is to educate not only ourselves, but also others. Yeah.
Thank you. Victoria, did you want to say anything?
Yes, I would like to say, especially to younger generations, know that these are different times from times when I growing up. So there's a lot of organizations now that people can reach out if they need help. And I wanted to let them know that they are not alone, that they can have, you know, they can be part of the community. Now there's a lot of organizations around the world, a lot of things like this panel happening online. And I think it is important to reach out to these places and these people. You're not alone. Especially this year that's been very difficult, you know, with COVID and all of the things that are happening in the world. So, and people felt so isolated. So I think it's really, really important to reach out to other people like us, like, you know, the trans community. So, and I always say there's light at the end of the tunnel.
I agree. Dinah?
Yeah. Maybe there's what I wanted to say, like the COVID that you brought in also triggered me, because I think that is one of the things that are really showing the precarity in our community, that people who have all of a sudden zero income, who cannot go out, or and they cannot go out of houses where they live together with 10, 20 people, because normally they don't have in those houses, they only sleep there. That is where we see that in all the disparity that everybody shares now at the moment, the trans people who are been living and surviving through, let's say, sex work or jobs that just all kind of jobs that they need to do to survive. When there was no more when there was no possibility to work anymore, not to go out of the house anymore, you saw immediately this disparity and precarity coming up, and there were very few people who watched and wanted to help and step in. And I think for me, it's something that shows that we really have to find solutions, you know, for better lives, to be political, as saHHara said as well. It's very important to show that we really can, if people are wanting to have conversation about intersectionality, come to speak with a Black person, a trans person, come speak with someone who lives that reality from day to day. And I think that is where we should really try to help as well, with just very little means. But sometimes people really need to survive till the other day. They don't have anything to eat, and that is the reality of people now, trans people. So I think it's important to raise those conversations, to write about it. And also, I just finished up something with Nicholas May from the Kingsford, I think, Kingston University in London. And I wrote a thesis about sex work and racism. It really shows, it's coming out very soon, so I can share it with all of you, in the France context, in Paris. But it really shows that when people can no longer go out on the streets to work, and you have to show papers to validate your trip. So where are you going to? What are you doing? And you don't have those papers. Where do you end up? You can be locked in your house, but you cannot even go to the shop to get food. And then there is no work. So I mean, this whole thing, it went over our heads, and it's still there. So I hope that we can find, and if this continues to be longer, it really is really going to be very very difficult for many of us. And we really need to unite, because we cannot be on islands and do this separately. It needs to be very strong together, and united, I think.
Absolutely. And I think that comes across throughout all our conversations about being together, coming together. And any final words that people want to say, Sarah?
Okay, I have two advice I'll give to younger people. I would say one is the about love and how we find love, and the second one is coming out. It's two sets of advices that I always, and I will continue talking about non-stop until young people and our community start listening. You are valid. You don't need a man to validate you. You don't need to be in a relationship to be happy. You need to be contented with yourself. You need to search deep down and find those things you love to do. And go out there and do it, but you don't have to bring humans into it for you to be yourself. This is very important, because we often go and look for love in the wrong places. And by doing so, we don't vet the humans that we bring into our lives carefully. And then we tend to become the victims of those people. And they're usually very dangerous people who haven't come to terms with their sexuality, and because they're not confident in their sexuality, and because patriarchy and the way they were brought up has taught them that they cannot date a trans woman, because if they date a trans woman, especially if you're a trans woman who dates a cisgender man, straight cisgender man, it becomes, oh, you are going to be, oh, it means you're gay for liking a trans woman. So this is another broad issues, which I won't go too deep into. But my advice is, please, 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 when you're picking a man or picking someone to bring into your life, be very careful. Vet them very well first. If you're a sex worker, be very careful as well. If you're going out to do your work, give your phone number. I have a close friend who is a professional sex worker. She always calls me. My phone is always on. She calls me. I tell her, call me anytime. Give me a call if you're worried about something, or if you're doing out calls. Send me a call. Give me phone number. Give me all the information about the person, just in case. You know, be cautious, because your life matters. You're loved. Can you imagine if something happens to you? Your family members, your friends in particular, would be devastated, especially friends who are not connected to your family. It's excruciatingly painful when you love a friend so much and they die, and you don't even know how they get buried, or you don't know what is going on, and things are happening around with the family members. They reject you because you're not part of the family. So just consider that before you put your life in risk, because as much as I'm not blaming you for what is happening to you. I'm just saying, just please be careful. So the second one I want to talk about is the other aspect of coming out. Because of social media now, we have this pressure of You see a beautiful trans person, they do the before and after pictures. You know, I don't even want to go into that, but people do a lot of before and after pictures where to create a shock and sensationalize the idea of being a trans person. Because the media started this madness before now, but trans people have reclaimed it and they're doing it now. And I see a lot of trans people doing it and they feel like they're pressured to do it. Like they have to go out there and prove to the world that they're actually a trans person for them to be accepted as the people that they are. You don't need to do that. Because once you out yourself, you can't go back into the closet. You need to make sure that you are physically and mentally strong enough to take the criticism and the name calling that comes with being out before you out yourself. Because once you're out, you can't go back in. And you also have to remember that it's going to affect the jobs that you apply for. It's going to affect the people you call your friends. It's going to, as much as I would say, yes, they don't deserve you if they behave that way because you're a trans person. Yes, it's good, it's great. But again, you need to worry about yourself too. Your mental health is very, very important. So when you're taking these steps in life, just be very, very careful. That is all I'm going to say. You don't have to be an advocate. No. You don't have to be an activist. You can still support the cause by supporting the organization, like Dinah was saying, fund a different organization, or you go out there and support the organization invisible. You don't have to be visible. You can still support those people who are out and physical and helping the community. You can still help when you're in a classroom with your colleagues and somebody is attacking a trans person. You can say, don't do that. That is wrong. Don't do that. It doesn't mean you have to out yourself. So we have that misconception that we have to out ourselves to prove that, yes, we are activists. Oh, we are all activists. We are this. No. You don't have to do that. Put yourself first and think about your future because it will affect you. I wish I knew that before I outed myself, but no one told me. So please be very careful. Careful, cautious.
Brilliant sound advice. Brilliant. Thank you. And I want to keep you here all day. I want to keep all of you here that we talk out all this stuff. But I just want to touch on Alexandra. You live in Mexico City, as you said at the start. You do a lot of work within the communities. You do that face. I've seen you marching in the streets, protesting. I've seen what you do. You're right there doing this. And I'm just wondering any kind of final words from you as well, my dear sister.
I like what my dear saHHara says, to be cautious. And unfortunately, we live in a dangerous world, in a society that is driven by hate. So yeah, we must be careful. But at the same time, I definitely feel that we as trans leaders, because we are leaders, somehow we are in this position of leadership, and to stay visible, to keep advocating for those who didn't get a chance or don't have a chance, and the fight is on. I mean, for me, being out on a march or being out and demonstrate or being out and protest about injustice when one of my sisters gets killed and the police and the system does nothing about it and stays silent, and the media sensationalizes these type of crimes, hate crimes, horrendous hate crimes. Honey, I'm out on the street.
Absolutely.
Really,
you are. Definitely. Definitely.
So the fight is on.
Seriously, I feel so privileged to sit here with you all. And, sometimes I get stumped for words, but my heart's beating for all that you said and for joining us. And, I hope this isn't the last time we all sit together. Maybe we're all in our own places, but one day, sorry.
Thank you so much. I think you should do this more often.
Yeah.
I think it's a great, and don't put time frame on it, because when you're having a conversation, it's so cool. And if we all give our hours, we can give you some hours. It's
All
fine.
right.
We always have that conversation.
All right, I'm here. Let's carry on.
It's quite fun. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Let's not put a time frame, because it kind of, you know, it can bring a focus, but also these conversations, they do happen. But, you know, this has been so special. And I genuinely mean that from my heart. So thank you.
I'm so honored. Please, ladies, add me on Facebook. I'm not always on Instagram. Please add me on Facebook so we can have conversation and keep in touch. I'm always there making noise.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you so much. It is a great honor to be here with you.
Same here. Same here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to all of you.
Bye. Victoria. See you later.
Let's get together again.
Thank you.